Good morning and welcome to Let's Talk Mental Health with Mel Noton. And today I've got two awesome guests with me. I've got Jodie Lloyd-Jones, the CEO from Oxfordshire Youth, and Devon Robb, who we've got a picture of, but not the. Unfortunately, his camera's not working this morning. I should have tried that, actually. I must note that to myself next time. And Devon is a young ambassador for going through the Mental Wealth Academy. Is that right, Devon?
Yeah, that's correct.
Phew. So Jodie and I first met a long time ago when I worked in CAMS, which is a child and adolescent mental health service, and we came across Oxfordshire Youth as part of some partnership work we're doing, which we'll come on to in a second. But Jodie, do you just want to explain who you are and what Oxfordshire Youth does very broadly?
Absolutely, yes. Hi, so Jodie Lloyd-Jones, I'm the Chief Exec of Oxfordshire Youth. Oxfordshire Youth is an Oxfordshire-based charity. We're a youth development charity, and we, for about 70 years old, we're a very well-established charity, and we have three core areas of work, if you like, and one is around mental health and wellbeing, which is also the part of the key topic for today. One is around building skills for work and life, and then one is around supporting the sector. So we work within a network of 150 youth organisations in Oxfordshire and provide a whole raft of support and opportunities for the sector to come together and for us to work together to basically have better outcomes and opportunities for young people in Oxfordshire. In a nutshell.
Very well put. And Devon, do you want to say any more about yourself?
Me personally, I'm an ambassador with the mental health team, and I've been working with them since probably the beginning of the side of the project that I've been joining. And yeah, I'm been enjoying my time. I've been learning a lot since I joined, and it's been an interesting experience, I'll tell you that much.
Well, thank you very much for joining us this morning, and do chip in at any point you want to say something, Devon, because you represent the voice of the young person in this that we really want to capture. So if we're talking rubbish, you tell us.
Yeah, I'll chime in.
Thank you. So just going back a little bit then, as I said, I first met Jodie when I was a service manager in child and adolescent mental health in Oxfordshire, and we were relaunching a new service, and within that service we were trying to bring in third sector charity organisations to work with CAMS, and Jodie, you came in as one of 6 other charities. Your role was slightly different, wasn't it? It was to deliver training.
It was, and actually I was just thinking back, because actually we're 3 years into that partnership, and actually we're in such a different space with it now, and I think it came when Oxfordshire was doing a massive review of CAMS and looking at different ways of operating and how to support young people at the kind of lower level of needs around mental health, and actually the partnership approach has massively grown, and so lots of other youth organisations in that partnership are providing one-to-one kind of mentoring support, which is absolutely essential for young people at the moment. And Oxfordshire Youth were providing a kind of training piece. So we have trained over 1,800 staff in schools on children and young people's mental health throughout that period. So we kind of had the training arm, if you like, that would support school staff in particular to know about and understand about children and young people's mental health, but would then would signpost them into the partnership so that they could support young people to have access to mental health support. And actually that then evolved because the CAMS partnership was working up to 18, and so the partnership we put our heads together and we created a brand new model to work with 18 to 25-year-olds, because we noticed a huge gap in support, and then that's where the Mental Wealth Academy was then birthed. And as part of the Mental Wealth Academy, again, a number of youth organisations in Oxfordshire, so charities, are supporting young people aged 18 to 25 with one-to-one sessions supporting mental health. But in addition to that, Oxfordshire Youth, I guess, are part of that partnership. There's two different elements to that, but one is specifically what Devon is engaging with, which is working with young people aged 18 to 25 on a mental health journey. So a one-year programme of development around supporting young people to become mental health ambassadors. And Devon's kind of on that programme at the moment and is looking to work with other young people to create workshops that will then be delivered for younger children and young people to support them with their mental health. Devon, I don't know if you want to say something specifically about that. Over to you.
No, I think you nailed most of that on the head. I will say, if I have to go briefly, I do apologise. My computer's starting to sort of choke up on me, but
don't worry.
I just closed the program and now everything else is freaking out, so I don't know what's going on. But no, I think you nailed that on the head. I've been learning a lot since I joined the program, and everything has been really informative and really eye-opening to stuff that, even, as me, as someone who has always kind of wanted to help out a lot of other people, I've not thought of a lot of these different things that we've been talking about in the meetings and the training sessions that we've had with Rachel, who is our line manager, and she's excellent to work with as well.
And Devon, one of the things that Jodie and I talked about for years was the fact that, you don't suddenly at 18 become a fully fledged adult in terms of overnight, I've changed and I know how to do everything. And we always felt that services stopping at 18 was a big barrier, but it was something that took a long time to shift in the sand, as it were. Devon, how do you feel about it going up to 25 now? Is that helpful? Ooh, I think we might have lost Devon. He might come in. Do you want to answer that for now, Jodie? And then
what I was thinking is, we wouldn't be working with Devon actually if we hadn't. And I think what we're finding is that Mental Wealth Academy, working with that age range, and actually when COVID hit, we dropped the age range to 14 actually, just because there was such high demand for the service. But we've got large numbers of young people that are accessing that service. So for me that demonstrates the need. And I think the more we're on, we know mental health is becoming much more something that people are understanding, and I don't think it matters what age you are. Mental health is something that I think there's always in need of support, but of course as a young person, actually to be able to have a space where you come together with peers as well, to be able to talk and unpick about different things is one of the things I'm hearing from Devon and the other young people in the Mental Health Ambassadors Programme about that's been a really key part of the journey for them, because they've made friends and they're being able to talk about mental health in a safe space that's making
that. And I guess that then gives them the ongoing peer support afterwards. So as life continues, it's not sort of you learn it here and then you go back and graduate back to what you were before. You can sustain those skills.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the other thing I was going to say about the Mental Wealth Academy is that so because we've been providing this training for the last couple of years, we've had such amazing feedback from school staff, and also we've been offering that out to charity staff as well, but we kind of identified a bit of a gap in parents and carers, and just especially with the pandemic as well now, just people really wanting to understand a bit more about how to build resilience, how to keep well, how to support their children at home or family around them. So we created some workshops for parents and carers in Oxfordshire, and that has been fantastic. And actually we've had parents and carers from all walks of life across Oxfordshire attending those workshops, and basically learning about children and young people's mental health, which the feedback that we've been getting has been fantastic in supporting parents to just feel a little bit more like they understand a bit more about mental health or some of the things that maybe their kids are going through, which is it's been fantastic. So we're running that now for the next couple of years under the Mental Wealth Academy as well. That's
wonderful. And I guess the pandemic has forced certain things to ahead sooner perhaps than they would have done had it not gone on. And I'm guessing with parents homeschooling so much and young people being there in the middle of the family the whole time as opposed to disappearing off, perspectives have changed greatly within the family unit, and skill sets have been drawn on that weren't necessarily drawn on before. So is that where it's sort of come from with the pandemic situation?
Interestingly enough, we had already identified the need for support around parents before the pandemic. I think we've now got a lot more interest in those workshops since the pandemic, and so we've been looking at funding to run more workshops, because those workshops are free, and they're available to Oxfordshire parents. So if there are any people listening to this that wanted to access it and thinking, I'd love to learn a little bit more about it, then they can access them. As a charity, you know, we look to fund the things that we offer and then provide those out free to Oxfordshire community. So I think COVID's just exaggerated a lot of that. And I think I also did just want to say, because when we talk about mental health, you and we're talking about the kind of broader spectrum of well-being and mental health needs, and we're not necessarily just talking about ill mental health. And actually, you know, every one of us experiencing mental health all of the time. And I guess these workshops are about just really kind of unpicking a little bit of that and understanding a bit more about brain development of children and young people, and how mental health affects them in that period.
Yeah, and mental health is one of those words that is often misinterpreted as a negative. It immediately means illness and disease, whereas if you talk about physical health, you often think about going for a run or things that are very positive, but mental health doesn't quite have that same connotation. But this is about bringing the balance back to the definition of mental health and having the well-being side and what you can do to look after it and to prevent illness.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was just thinking as well in terms of our own workplace. So we talk a lot about mental health and well-being. One of our values is around self-nurturing. And so we're constantly looking at within our workplace, what are the ways that we're operating that are supporting us to be well at work. And so we're just little things like ensuring that we don't have that culture of just cracking on and just kind of pushing through the kind of the workload, and making sure that there's space for reflection and development, and that we're having open conversations and dialogue, so that we're able to, I guess, role model that when we're then working with young people as well. So I think, you know, businesses are in particular now moving a lot more into really thinking about this in the workplace. And actually, I think, and I don't know whether Devon's come back on, because it'd be really great to hear from Devon about what Devon maybe thinks that workplaces could be doing. Oh, you are. Hi. Yes.
Hi, I am back. Yeah. I just want to make sure, is it coming through the same mic as before? Because my whole system restarted itself. That never happens, but hey ho, technology, you know.
I gotta say, you sound like a radio DJ, Devon. It's really cool.
Thanks. I've done a bit of recording music experience in my past. I've got a lot of the gear that I used to use. What exactly do you want me to sort of talk about again? Refresh my mind.
Our conversation moved on to kind of general well-being, I guess, and the impacts of COVID. And I was just wondering, from kind of your experience, I mean, obviously you're kind of an older young person moving into the world of work, what you think that businesses should be doing to support young people in the workplace around mental health.
Okay. I mean, I can't say I've had a whole lot of experience with working with businesses. I struggle to say that for some reason. And recently, obviously, because of lockdown, it's been a lot more difficult to get employment. And for me, specifically, it's a bit more difficult because of my disability. I suffer from a condition called Knobloch syndrome, which is a sight loss condition. And I do notice that there are a lot of businesses that do well with supporting with disabilities in general, but there are also a lot of businesses I know that do mostly well with supporting people with mental health issues as well. So whether you've got PTSD, anxiety, depression, or anything along those kind of lines, it's comforting to see that even through lockdown, they do still support people like that. My ex, for example, has severe anxiety, and she had to take quite a number of periods off of work because of how intense it would get from time to time. She wouldn't be able to work to the demand that they wanted her to. So and the company was willing enough to still give her her sort of sick pay, I guess you could call it, in the time that she needed off. And so they were still willing to support her, and she worked for a call center, I believe, at the time. So concern wise, I think there are some, you know, bigger companies that could probably do better at this. But again, without having that first-hand experience, I can't sort of label any. But I do have friends who have made those sort of complaints where they've said, you know, that the stress can get too much, and they don't recognize that, you know, people of the younger ages, can specifically around about my age and maybe a little bit younger, have issues that can prevent them from working efficiently and can prevent them from even being able to get up and ready to go to work. So that being said, you know, if we're talking about COVID specifically, a lot of companies in general have been adapting their workflow to, you know, allow their employees to work from home. And I think with people that have kind of mental health issues, mainly around anxiety, or like if they have issues with, you know, kind of being around too many people, a lot of the companies, I think it's kind of working hand in hand, that they are allowing people to work from home, or, you know, adapting to work from home, because I think it's working better in hand for those types of people.
Devon, tell me, as a young person who's more familiar with technology than I am, for example, and more familiar with social media and those kinds of things, is it, so I'm imagining that if you've gone into the work environment through, just before, through, or you're going in now, the pandemic, one of the things you might feel, as well as anxiety, I'm sure, is a sort of sense of disconnect, or not able to really make good connections with people in the workplace because you're not physically with them. Is that something that happens to you, or you know, as a younger person, I'm much more familiar with IT?
Yeah.
That happens to people like me, but not you.
Yeah, well, yeah, no, I think because a lot of the younger generation do. I think it depends on the situation, because a lot of the younger generation around about my age, and even, you know, even before like your teens, when you're in your when you're like still your kids or your early teens or whatever, a lot of people do both rely on social media, so they kind of have this natural connect sort of thing, so it feels natural for them to kind of socialize through social media and stuff like that. But then on the flip side, there are people closer to my age who do have this kind of disconnect, and I think, depending on the situation, or, you know, depending on how much time you spend on social media, it can be an issue. Me personally, I've felt a difference, because I'm more of an extrovert. I like going out and I like meeting up with friends and being with my friends in person. So having sort of, you know, having to be forced to sort of sit indoors most of the time and mostly socialize on platforms like Facebook, Discord, Twitter, whatever you want to use, Snapchat, whatever. I don't use Snapchat, but, you know, yeah, it does. It feels weird. There is for me personally, there is this weird sort of disconnect that you're not quite used to, but at the same time, it is a little bit comforting in the sense that you can still somewhat connect with those people, and somewhat, you know, still have some form of a social life. So you're not, you know, you don't feel alone. You don't feel, you know, like you're sort of lost for options on, you know, what to do or who to talk to and stuff like that. You still got people that you can rely on. For example, my best friend, I text her all the time, and, you know, she's always around for me to talk to if I'm ever feeling anxious or anything about something.
And I suppose the like anything in this life, there are the pros and cons of all. So although there are downsides to just, you know, always being on the computer to talk to people, there are positives. And maybe what part of the mental wealth approach and well-being approach is just acknowledging that we have pros and cons with everything, and being aware of what might not work for people is pretty helpful as a good starting point.
Yeah.
Is there one thing, there doesn't have to be, but is there one thing that if you could give some advice to businesses trying to accommodate young people into their workplace, particularly with a thought towards promoting strong mental well-being or resilience or coping strategies at work, is there one thing that you think you could say to them, you know, try this is really helpful?
Off the top, again, without having that first-hand experience with a lot of different companies and a lot of different jobs, I've only really had like 2 jobs in my entire life, officially. But I would say just be aware of the kind of stuff. You got to just be a comfortable sort of work environment to be in. and don't play things too formally, obviously depending on the company, but like don't play things too formally, and make sure that your employees feel comfortable around their co-workers and stuff like that. Have a good HR system and HR department and whatever that can handle any disputes and sort of uncomfortabilities that some employees may have. And for God's sakes, make sure that whoever's running HR understands and is well learned about mental health in general, and whatever it's, no matter what the condition is.
So maybe that's something the businesses can take away specifically, is that perhaps people within HR might want to contact Oxfordshire Youth and find out about a little bit more awareness raising, Jodie?
Absolutely. I mean, we're also running mental health first aid training for businesses as well. So if businesses are looking for training to train their staff, Oxfordshire Youth. So I think, Devon, I'd just like to say that I think it's just why I knew it was so important to bring you into this conversation today. Kind of really brought us to the reality of the kind of levels of anxiety that people are facing and how that can impact them in the workplace, in school, in lots of places, and actually the space of wherever we're working, how important it is to be equipped to be able to support people in our workplace with whatever's going on. And I think the other bit that you were saying there, Devon, which I thought was really important, is around, so you said something about not being too formal, but I think what I was hearing from what you were saying is it's almost like understanding the person and the people that you're working with, and that actually whilst we're in the workplace, that your staff and everyone around us has lives and has things going on and has, you know, different elements of their lives that we all need to kind of take note of within the workplace to be able to best support young people and general staff in the workplace. And actually the mental health first aid training, which I think lots of organisations are now bringing in, and quite often they do train up the HR professional. Actually, Oxfordshire Youth are taking a bit of a different approach to that, because we're training the whole of our organisation from top to bottom in mental health first aid, and actually we think that organisations should be going beyond maybe one person who's kind of trained around mental health and in terms of supporting. But yeah, absolutely, we would love to hear from businesses that want to work and link in with a number of the partnerships and to engage in the programs that we're running as well.
There was a wonderful quote, I've mentioned this before, so forgive me if you've heard it before, but there is a really good book, and the book is called Love Your Imposter Self, and it's written by Rita Clifton, I think, who is a very high-flying CEO of FTSE 100 companies. And a very down-to-earth lady, and she talks a lot about coming out as being human, and it's really important that we show actually we don't have to be these robots in the workplace. We can show our emotions, obviously not to extremes, but we can ask people genuinely, how are you, and take the time to listen to the answer. And we can say, actually, I'm having a bad day today, you know, and show some compassion and empathy and time. It doesn't have to be hours, but it just has to be perhaps over a quick cup of tea or whatever you drink. Other beverages are available, and show that we can be a compassionate work environment as well. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, and I think we're in a big period of change still, aren't we? And I think people are rethinking lots of things in personal, professional lives, and I think we're kind of moving into that more of a space where we're thinking about the whole person at work. And I think that actually in terms of really engaging young people in young workforce, that we actually have to be doing that, because the world is changing, and actually there is much more about kind of that bringing your whole self to work, and not that kind of I'm at work now and this is my home stuff. It's, you know, it feels like there's been a huge shift in that over the last couple of years, and actually to really be able to engage young workforce, I think that shift needs to happen much more in order to do that. Yeah, absolutely. I love a good book recommendation as well. Thank you for that. I'm going to write that one down.
Honestly, it's a great book. You can whiz through reading it because it's really funny as well. Devon, do you find that in the work environment or any environment that it can be difficult if people ask you questions as a younger person coming in, or does it feel okay? How does it feel?
I think it depends on the employer. I think a lot of employers are pretty sort of focused on what their business is doing. So maybe depending on their background, it can be a little bit daunting. But from my experience, I haven't had too many issues. Again, I've only really had like 2 jobs in my entire life officially, and they were pretty small ones at that. I don't know. I haven't really had too many issues in regards to that. Particularly,
I think sometimes people can feel a bit worried that they'll upset somebody if they ask them something like that. That can be a barrier to asking questions, but shouldn't feel that, perhaps, is what we want to say to them.
Yeah, I think there is a sort of sense. There is kind of a sensitivity sort of issue at times, I think, and not just with work, but I think in general. Maybe it's a generational thing, maybe it's not. I don't know, but I do notice, just even with working with some of the people that I have on some of the projects I run, a lot of people can be a bit sort of cautious about asking questions, or a little too scared to ask a certain person a certain type of question, whether or not it's because they fit into a certain demographic or stereotype, or because they have certain characteristics about them that they feel they might offend them if they ask a question. It's that kind of thing. Me personally, I experience that a lot as a disabled person. I get a lot of people afraid to ask questions because they feel like they're gonna ask the wrong question, or they're gonna offend me somehow. And I think maybe in a workplace, I could see how that could be a sort of a barrier that could come up. Again, I haven't though. So.
And Jodie, have you got any thoughts on that?
Well, again, I was just kind of listening to Devon then and thinking, God, we could have quite a huge discussion about diversity in the workplace. But the other thing I was thinking about what Devon was saying, which about the kind of sensitivity around dialogue. I think that's something that we all just have to get so much better at, whatever place that we're working in. It's the training, development, it's the raising awareness, so that actually you understand that maybe the language, or a bit more about mental health, or you understand and know a bit more about disabilities in the workplace, or in terms of the kind of huge diversity piece and the unconscious bias. Businesses and all, everyone who's kind of working in whatever field you're in, actually we need to really be putting in an effort to be able to have conversations and to not feel like we can't ask questions and that we can't have open dialogue within the workplace, because actually that's just creating barriers for so many people. So I actually just think, I guess the answer to that is that actually wherever we're working, we really need to be creating spaces to have open dialogue, and training and supporting our staff to have these open conversations to be able to support everybody in the workplace.
And again, that's something organisations can help with, isn't it? Sorry, Devon.
I was just going to say, I completely agree with you on that. But it's also it's kind of a difficult subject, because on the flip side of things, like we were saying earlier about pros and cons, it's all fair and well having to be able to put that in place, and have the employers and the management have that kind of that training of being able to have an open conversation or open dialogue, like I said. But on the flip side, there are a lot of people that do get very sensitive about being asked kind of questions like that. And I think it's not just about being able to train employers and managers about being able to have that open dialogue discussion, but also knowing when and how to appropriately deal with someone who might be a bit sensitive about that kind of information. That's another thing that's kind of important, and I think would probably have to be included in the training, obviously, but it's important to keep both of those both of those in mind in that discussion, because there's a fine line between like when you can ask someone an open question about what they're feeling and how they're feeling, and accidentally stereotyping them or accidentally generalizing them, and you can easily make that mistake, unfortunately. So
it can be a bit of a minefield, can't it? And actually maybe what we should do is have another conversation another month about this, because actually it's a really interesting one. But I suppose what I'm taking away from it is that these are conversations that need to start happening in the structure of organisations about how to make it safe and acceptable to do so, and then accessing training from people like yourselves at Oxfordshire Youth will help us move forwards as compassionate human beings in the workplace. So I think one thing I want to say before we come to a conclusion, because we're almost out of time, We didn't get to talk about it, but I do want to say that Oxfordshire Youth is also doing a lot to do with housing support at the moment. So you've got like 5 seconds to say, Jodie.
5 seconds. Okay. I mean, there's so many other things that we could talk about, but Oxfordshire Youth launched a new housing service in partnership with Response Organisation in October. So we're supporting 130 young people in supported accommodation, which basically means we're providing 24-hour support for young people in the county. And we're kind of really taking a youth work approach to supported housing. So it's quite an innovative new way of working, and we're very early days into delivering that service, but it's just an absolutely key service that we're really excited and privileged to be working on and leading. So yeah, absolutely. And also, just, I know we're about to end, so Devon, I just want to say thank you so much, because it's always so nice to have a young person and to kind of really hear kind of your points of views, and you've really framed the conversation and given so much value to this.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem whatsoever. It's been a pleasure.
And thank you, Jodie, for coming on as well. And we can direct everyone to your website. So we'll put some information on underneath this when you're watching it, and you can have a good look on Oxfordshire Youth's website. Thank you, Jodie. Thank you, Devon. And we'll see you all in a month's time.
Yeah, thank you so much. Great to see you, Mel.
Yeah, thanks.